Hello everybody, I am back and today I'm talking about my remote session which I did into the forest. I remote viewed it. We've got the map here with basically the forest, and on this map I will talk to you, show you images what I saw. Yeah, so when I looked into the forest, first feeling I got was a lot of 3D static, and these craft was, where I could describe it, triangle, really kind of darkish silvery colour, had its own consciousness into it. It didn't, it didn't land the way we would think it would land. I got it shifted from 5D into 3D. This was not an accident, this had to happen. These craft were more focused on, basically, we're here to install a node, fix and maintain the forest. So monitor the forest, not fix, and basically to monitor the grid. That's what they're there for. They weren't interested in the military being present, but the craft and these consciousness knew that the military were going to be there before the military even knew. So I'm going to show you some photos. So the photo of the craft is what I saw on ground. Lot of static. This craft was anchoring a note, reasons why it had to be on the ground to do this. There were ET beings, but I didn't really feel they were monitoring, but not, actually getting involved. This felt the craft was doing most of this. And then move to the second photo where we see this orb. This orb with an eye in it, which is a craft. Do apologise, it's meant to be fully black, but however, with most things I couldn't get Gemini to do it. So basically, that orb and what I felt from it these craft had beyond conscious awareness what we have. Like, they're up here and we're down here. But they do see us as we are going through the consciousness shift, like going in 4D and 5D. They do see us going through that path, and that's what we're meant to go through. So they know we're going through this path, and the note is there to help humanity with the consciousness shift which is coming, but also to help the grid as well. With the blinking orb, the reason it was blinking, I strongly got this impression from it because of the vibration shift. It had to be 3D to do what it's doing. It was monitoring the forest either by shooting off these beams to monitor the grid. That's what all of what's going on in the forest, that's what its main thing was. Monitor the grid, install the node, and monitor the forest. Monitor the grid and the forest and the node. Not really did not really care about the military being there. It knew the military were going to be there. To them, their point of view, the military is just background 3D static. So the reason it was dripping was because the access this craft coming into this orb, this eye, which looked like an eye, came into our density, our dimension, which is 3D. 3D, what I got from that craft was 3D is physical. So it has to play by the rules of this dimension. So everything in this dimension is physical. That had to be physical. The craft had to be physical. And it was basically plasma I got, fusion plasma. And it was dripping off because of the friction of the vibration, but the access of, coming into 3D and just literally, the overload of energy coming off it due to being in 3D. It was struggling to be in 3D for a 5D craft. It is a craft. It just, for us, looked like an orb. It's actually a craft with an eye in it. This was blinking. Now, normally I got strong impression it would not be blinking if it was in 4D at all. In 4D, it's static. It doesn't blink. The only reason it blinked was because of the dimension it was in, and it was forced to be in this dimension due to the frequency. So it had to lower its frequency to be in this density. It was here to do a job, and essentially it was here to install this to make sure, how was the forest coping with the note being installed, but also monitoring the military, not in a malicious way, but to make sure they don't overload and see what they're seeing. So that's what it's doing. The orb which hit Colonel Holt, got the impression it was not malicious, was scanning him to make sure that his biological suit could handle what he was seeing. So his brain was decoding what he was seeing, and I got for a second that if he couldn't handle that, instantaneously it would go on. It would slip back into 5D. And that's what I got. So it wasn't, the beam was there to monitor his vitals to make sure that he could cope what he was seeing. The triangle craft at the first incident, when it took off and disappeared, that didn't took off and disappear. It slipped back into 5D. What I also got was that reason people saw it blinding white is because that's just the frequency shift. It has to raise its vibration and then shift. That's why some people saw it as a blinding white light. That's just of the frequency. It's going up into 5D, so that's normal to see. But obviously, where people are on the frequency level and what their brain can decode, so you might have one person seeing a full physical object and one person seeing blinding light. Just their frequency and just where their brain decodes. Everybody is like that. What I got when it exploded, the orb here with the eye, that exploded, and from a 3D point of view, from a human point of view, it kind of went exploded and disappeared. Didn't explode. From our point of view, it did. When it exploded, it kind of, one went to the base, one went to the forest to monitor the forest, one was monitoring the base, one was monitoring the military. But it was in 4D. And the reason you see half of it was shooting beams down into the weapon storage area was that they were concerned in the way that when a nuclear missile goes off, it doesn't damage us, it then damages the other dimensions. So even a nuclear missile being present can still damage the grid. So they were taking action, not in a malicious way at all. This felt for our interest as well as their interest as well. Mostly what's happening in that forest was putting in a note into the forest, into the grid. There was one craft where it was blue, and it kind of, where I could describe it, turned on a light hole and went through a window, actual military truck. that was going to where it needed to go, and it needed to go and monitor the forest. 3D people were panicking, scared, but from the craft's point, from this object, the blue object craft was really actually wasn't interested to the craft. It was like, this is 3D static or fear, and it went to do what it needed to do, which was monitor the forest. What I also got that the animals in the barn were absolutely aware that there was a frequency shift happening. So that panic was their body going, hold on a minute, we're picking up this frequency shift. Something's entering into 3D dimensions. And basically that's what, when animals freaked out, that was just a response of them picking up the frequency coming in. So this was all planned to happen. It was an accident. It just didn't appear. It had to happen. Did get that this is not going to happen again. What happened in that time? This was like almost a one-off, but seeing this in 3D stance, it's not going to happen again in the forest. I mean, they clearly did say, people going there trying to look for this, they said it's not going to happen. What I get now is these crafts still in the forest, actually in the forest, but in a different dimension, which is 4D or 5D, and they basically move around the forest, monitoring the grid, monitoring the node, not really paying attention to people, just because, to them it is literally 3D static. So that was one half when I looked into the forest. Very interesting when I connected to the